Stop now. Well, I've been pounding for about 5 or 6 minutes and it turns to like a mushy pound, and I can tell you the juices and the flavours coming off that pound is really, really strong, and my eyes are all beginning to go straight away. So I'm just going to cover that over so my eyes don't hurt. But usually this sort of cooking will be done outside. They'd have their fire and they'd be outdoors, so you know it wouldn't be quite as intense. But the next job is preparing some vegetables to go in the stew. Now I found it really difficult to get hold of all the vegetables that they would grow over there. They've got a lot of very different vegetables than what we grow. But these two vegetables we can get quite easily in the UK, which come from Africa, and they use quite a lot. And that's the squashes. There's all types of squashes, but particularly this butternut squash. If you look at the label, it will quite often tell you it's grown in Africa. And also sweet potatoes are another vegetable that they grow over there. And they have like plantains, which are like sweet bananas. And they've got quite a few vegetables that look like this, that are quite sweet and starchy, which they put into their food. So I'm going to quickly prepare, and they tend to, because the food is cooked in a big stew, they don't tend to chop things very finely. Things are actually put in stews in quite big chunks, so you don't have to spend a long time slicing and dicing. I'm going to prepare the sweet potato. I'm using a peeler, but I didn't see many peelers when I was over there. This was just, there was lots of people helping cooking. So it wouldn't just be one person doing all the cooking. And they'd never use ready-made meals, ever. They'd cook everything from the food that they bought in the market. But they had lots of people to help them prepare, so it wasn't one person doing everything. But I would still say though, cooking by the fire is very hard work and very, very hot. So sometimes women used to team up together and one woman cook one day and then have a break the next day. So we'll just remove the peelings from the board. So we've got the sweet potato. So that's quite easy to chop. It's down the middle, and then they put it into their meals into fairly big chunks, so it doesn't go too sort of mushy and soft. That goes in. Is that looking all right? Mm-hmm. Is it okay? If you think anything looks a bit rubbish, just say. Like if you think I should clear this board's a bit wonky. Let's get better. Can you get a bit better board? It's very wonky. Okay. Go. So we chop that up. So we've got a pile of sweet potato. Lovely. That's so sweet potato. Now butternut squashes, pretty similar, but if you've never seen one cut in the middle, I'll cut you down one in the centre. They're very hard vegetables. Cut down the middle, and when you open it, you've got these seeds. And in Africa, nothing gets wasted, and they would take those seeds out, they would dry those seeds off, and they'd either pound them and put them into their food, or they'd eat them like snacks. So nothing, whatever they grow, nothing gets wasted. So you take out these seeds, and I'm not obviously going to dry them off in the sun. I haven't got any sun in the UK. So what we're going to do is just same as the sweet potato, but it's a much harder skin, a beautiful colour though, really lovely colour. We're going to just peel this off, like so, and all the way around, and then chop it up as well to go in the stew. So there is some vegetables as well as the chicken. There we go, as well. This, you know, and we tend to eat a lot more of this butternut squash. But there's quite a lot of vegetables that they grow which don't get eaten over here, but they obviously a lot more over there because they grow them. And most people would grow their own food. Most people would have a little patch of grass or land, and they would grow some cassava, some yams, and some basic food stuffs for themselves because they've got so much sun. They can grow things really quite easily. So we've got our brown chicken and we've got our pound, and I've also got the groundnut paste, which is a really important part of this stew, and also some tomatoes, but they would actually use fresh ones and they would pound them as well. So, but because it's hard to get fresh tomatoes this time of year, we're going to be using tinned ones. So what you do first of all is you get the oil that you cook your chicken in, because that still has flavour, and also they wouldn't waste that oil. That would be a real waste, so they're going to use that oil in their cooking. So we're going to let that heat up, and the first ingredient to go in is this pan that we've made with all the spices and the chilli and everything. So that's going to go in to the mixture first. So put the pound in. And we cook that off for a while. Let's move that out of the way. It does have a lot of flavourings and stuff there. So we're going to cook the pound for a few minutes, so the flavours mix in with the oil and you get a nice base flavouring there. Okay, it's going to be quiet. Is it in all the gaps when there's nothing really to say or do? You've just got to wait for the next step. That's where I always feel the... So let's cook that off. Now, beginning to smell a bit, isn't it? Can you smell it? Right, okay, cool. Now, of course, traditional Africans would eat with your hands. So I might have to do a little demo of how they eat it with their hands. Okay, so I've now cooked off the pound, and you can see it's flavoured the oil. The next ingredient we're going to add is the vegetables. They go in. So the vegetables go in. Mix those around. And then I'm going to add the groundnut paste. That has to go in. That's the main ingredient for this dish. That's why it's called groundnut stew. So that goes in. It's quite thick at the moment. We have to loosen that up. Then we're going to pour in some water and some tomatoes. Okay. Oops. And then we're going to stir that and let that all mix it all together. So the groundnut mixes in with the sauce and the pound and the vegetables. So we mix it all together. Okay. Right. Right. Once it's boiling and bubbles, we're going to put the chicken back in because the chicken actually wasn't cooked properly. It was just brown. So that goes in. And this can be any meat. Like I say, when I was in Africa, there's so many chickens running around. It seems to be that was a popular meat of choice, what they tended to do. So what I'm now going to need to do is cook this for, it might be cooked for about an hour over there until everything was cooked off. But they would have a lot of steam coming off it, which you can just see coming now. And because they only wanted to build one fire, they wouldn't waste the possibility of using that steam, because that steam is really important energy. So most African kitchens would have a steamer, and a lot of the, if they were going to serve it with these vegetables called yam or cassava, which quite often the stews were served with, they would steam the yams and cassavas over the stew, so you'd only be using one fire and you'd be getting the best use of the energy that you were using. Now, I couldn't get any yams, I couldn't get any cassava, so they do eat a lot of rice and they do grow rice as well. So I'm going to cook rice in a steamer above the groundnut stew. So that will take longer than if we boiled it, because the steam, it will take about 20-30 minutes, but it will all cook together at the same time. So what I've got is, because it's a one-pot cooking, I've got my stew cooking underneath and I've got my rice cooking above. So if that was in Africa, they would cook it all together and it would all be ready together. So we'll just have to wait now until that cooks, and I'll show you about how Africans would serve their food and how the customs of how they would eat it.